and went through and edited the love letter and did all that work and everything, and then realized after having done so that I had essentially recreated a move on the sheet of the character that I was writing the love letter for. So it was all rather pointless, all things considered. So in any case, we're going to start with, I'm going to get this, get it like that. So
It must have been a very character appropriate.
Well, it was much longer.
Love letter.
It was much longer and detailed and weird and stuff. And then I realized, like, oh, I could do this much simpler thing that is kind of getting me where I wanted to go. So I kept all the color text to respond to answers with, and didn't then proceeded to, just use the original move and just keep that stuff around for resources and that sort of thing. So that's where that is. And where am I at here? I'm going to, we'll get over to, well, let's get the move up here. I'll put it there. I'll paste it in Discord too, just because.
That'll be easier to cut and paste.
Well, I will do that for you then. Oh my God. You know what's really cool about man, Discord's getting pretty close, man. It's getting pretty close to useful. I got to tell you. Because when you flip over to the, I wonder if I could hide that. When you get over to the text channel, if you're doing the video, it goes into like a picture-in-picture thing, which is pretty nifty. Pretty nifty. I wonder if I don't, what does it do? Huh, interesting. I don't know what that accomplishes at all. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. Oh, and Bill is not, he's just skipping right ahead and rolling. Man. Right. So the thing is, greetings, agent. Agent's orders for you pertaining to this field trip to the Helsinki City Natural History and Space Museum. Roll soldier. On a 10 plus, pick 2, pick both. 7, 9, pick 1. And as you can see here, Agent 1337 rolled an 8. So, Alex, your superiors give you useful resources or information, or aren't hiding secrets or misleading you. And I'll complicate that by simply saying the first option is essentially going to be cut and dried orders from Aegis, and the second option is Waters giving you the breakdown.
I will take aren't hiding secrets or misleading you.
That would be, yeah, so that's Waters' thing. All right, so this is, I gotta find my notes again. Where'd they go? Oh, there they are. Okay, so so this is you and Waters probably on like some kind of like what's the word I'm looking for? Like a
line,
like
scrambled.
a secure
encrypted communication,
encrypted chat thing that is like generic and like actually universal. It's not like a total custom deal, and it's not an Aegis one. It's like publicly available. Signal or something like that, where you can actually do a little bit of video chat. So you're still doing a video chat with him. And so he's kind of like using his phone and kind of got it propped up on his desk, you figure. So it's kind of like looking up at him at a very unflattering, up the nostrils angle. and not helped by the fact that he tends to read stuff by looking down his nose through his what do you call those? Transition lenses. Like he's looking down his nose as he's reading it, like this thing. And
or cheaters. The glasses are down lower on the nose.
yeah, he's doing that thing, and then the camera's already down there like that. So that's a super, he's like, so kid, all right, I sent you over the mission specs. Pretty straightforward. I haven't sent you everything because I need to ask you if you want everything, really. You may not. Not sure. The deal basically works out like this. Teams were real. They got word that your team's going to be dispatched, I guess, on this field trip to the History and Space Museum. They got a mission for you. It's largely observational, depending on how you approach it. It breaks down into like this. Now, the mission, while he's saying this, he has sent you the spec, the like sort of the spec on it. It's basically like, your team will be going to the thing, and while you're on this field trip to the museum, observe any strange anomalies. Like that's literally the whole mission description. Totally. What he's breaking out is like, so here's the deal. They think, some of the eggheads think that Kiln might potentially react to or cause reactions within certain exhibits. Our analysts think there's a chance that this is actually the intended result of the trip on the part of the school admin, maybe. We don't know. They want you to observe any of these reactions, and if you have the tools available, pay special attention to energy signature fluctuations that otherwise would be missed by the old eyeball Mark 1. If there's no interaction, if no interaction seems likely, like they're not going to get close enough to something, the suggestion is that you try to engineer physical proximity to likely artifacts. That's optional. I want to re-emphasize that that's optional. Joey Young may have run into artifacts similar to some of the specific displays when he was originally injured. He may have another reaction. Keep an eye out, as some of the predictions indicate that there's a potential response involving heightened aggression or some other sort of post-traumatic stress response. You want to keep an eye out for that, according to what the analysts are predicting. And we also think Met might recognize possibly some of the displayed artifacts or possibly some of the people at the museum of supranormal origin, or that there are displays on some of them, and if they have something to do with whatever future history that she's alleging knowledge of. So you want to note any items or people that she's paying special attention to. Aside from this, just try to keep the team out of trouble if that's at all possible. Now here's the thing. They gave me a gizmo to give to you. That's optional. That they think it's set up to be sort of a sensor for some of these activities and reactions and so forth with the artifacts. It seems pretty harmless. I've read some of the specs on it though, and some of the messaging back and forth between the eggheads while they're talking about this, and there's a possibility that it would cause the reactions, or, to use their email, exacerbate the situation. So I'll send it over if you think it'll help, if you want it. It'll probably give you a bit of a edge with determining what's going on, or you can just use your own gear and so forth. It's really, that part's up to you. I just wanted to give you a little bit more than the one-liner that they sent over. So what do you think, kid?
I think I'll figure something out on my own.
That seems like a really good idea.
Yeah, because it occurs to me that like if the school's doing this, they've got a way to confirm whether this is happening or not. How are they going to do it?
That's a good idea. That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, it goes a little. Oh, maybe it doesn't go without saying. Aegis is not as comfortable with Hellbinder in charge of the school as it might originally seem. Certainly as more than what they're saying publicly. So anything that they think, I don't know whether they even have any ulterior motives. Analysis is kind of on both sides about this. It's a little bit unexpected. I mean, the field trips aren't. We just think there has to be some kind of ulterior motive. I'm not sure what that is, and analysis really wants to get an eye and some data on what's going on with your friends. In this case, it's a museum, so I mean, Kiln's kind of obvious, but there's some stuff that could be going on with everybody. Do you know what's going on with Sync? Why he's not on this thing? Because your intel said he wasn't going to be available for it.
I honestly don't know.
He just said he couldn't come?
Yeah, things like that happen from time to time. People get sick. People get air quotes sick. It happens.
Yeah, that actually tracks. So, all right, kid. Well, good luck. Don't destroy the exhibits. Just let me know what's. I mean, technically the reports come through me, but and obviously if you need anything, holler and blame somebody else. Oops.
I need one thing.
Sure.
Can one of the interns keep track of my Animal Crossing turnip prices and just kind of buy low, sell high?
I don't even know what you're saying right now. I don't even why do you do this to me? I don't even know what you're trying to tell me. Yes,
Okay,
I will tell them exactly what you said and assume that you're not saying something that's going to make me look ridiculous any more than repeating turnip prices. You want a turnip. Kids today, I tell you. All right. And that is he cuts that call.
Fair enough.
Muttering darkly to himself about turnip prices. Anyway. Right. So yeah, that's the intel. Did we have so the field trip probably during a school day, and this is the whole class, so everybody's going. So that'll be super fun. Kiln, I have a question. This is, I think, probably a relatively unique to this era, or at least different from your era, concept of like a public space. I think it doesn't seem like, I mean, your society is old enough. I'm not sure that museums would have been a thing. Is this, I mean, process this for me. Like, is this a thing that you would have, that you really like gather? I mean, anything that I think would probably be kind of like this would be like a collection of current contemporary art of the time, because having old stuff presumes there was old stuff to keep around, and you're one of the earliest civilizations. So what's that like for you to sort of process? Nice,
Yeah,
nice gift there, Dave, by the way.
So no, we didn't really have museums or anything. There may have been the occasional statue or other piece from uh, previous previous group or one of our forebearers
Sure.
displayed in public somewhere, but nothing like this.
Right. Matt, what are field trips like where you're originally from? It, I mean, I think of all of your training as being essentially like craft, like trade school type of, like really practical apprentice mentor type of things.
And
Are
I
are
was born on the ship,
you're born
so
on the
I mean,
ship, so
yeah. So
your field trips
I mean,
would be to other
so
parts of the ship if there were field trips.
field trips would be going to other, other areas, parts that you don't normally go to.
The
It's
sewage recycling plant. See where your water comes from.
Is this because the sewage recycling people are on strike right now and you need scabs? No.
I mean, and and some of the other, but because it's a very kind of class society, there is public art. There are, public open spaces. It's just not a place where people like me would be seen or hang out.
Gotcha. So even when you did the field trip type of things, it really wasn't, you know, a thing you would, certainly not something you would have done very often, that kind of deal.
No, I mean, I think our exposure to public art would be more, you know, as you're going from point A to point B, you know, as opposed to.
Yeah. I mean, even if you did do sort of a, what would sort of count as a field trip, it would have been the kind of thing that, what do I want to say? Would have been still under the guise somewhat of,
We're not going to the Getty.
well, yeah, it would have been under the guise of what do I want to say, an apprenticeship type of situation anyway, right? Like you would have been going at something like that. Okay.
Probably if there's all that great public art, it's in it's in crates in loading bay 12 to be broken out in the new world.
No, I mean
Yeah.
there's public art for the paying passengers,
Yeah.
right? I mean, so there's public spaces, and these are all well-off people, and they like to have pretty things around them,
Sure.
right? So, I mean, you're not going to see a copy of the Magna Carta, but you are going to find, popular art, and things like that.
Gotcha.
Honestly, open space and green space is, as valued or more valued than simply, artwork.
Right. Joe, do you end up going to the how often do you go out in like the sort of the city public these days?
Probably not often.
Is it
I don't have anybody in particular to visit. If we, it's not clear to me in the current backstory whether we actually do any things as a team aside from attend classes to get in trouble.
well, I don't think you've been sort of, as far as I know, the go out and patrol as a team or on your own in the city hasn't happened much since school got started, and really, that you guys have previous knowledge of each other and you're being grouped together for that reason. But whether, I mean, partly it's been, people haven't been talking about it, so I'm assuming it's not happening. And also because, I mean, part of the goal of Phoenix Academy to a certain extent is to have you somewhat away from the city, somewhat safe, and also kind of kept busy. Um, but still using your abilities and stuff to the point where you don't get bored, that kind of stuff. Which isn't to say you're not.
And I would say that part of that is also because we're a clique. We're not a an authorized group.
The school's not going to actually send you out and say, okay, well, this is your school team extra credit assignment for Saturday. You have to go, do 2 hours on a patrol kind of thing. Log these various.
At least not sophomores.
Right. Yeah, there'll be group. Oh God, group projects. Group projects in Phoenix Academy are hard, man. Everyone has to contribute to bringing in a villain. That is a bad. You don't want to be somebody who's trying to like rob a bank anytime during midterms. It's just like you're at that point in time, you're just somebody's project, which is no good. I was just wondering. Yeah, I was asking mostly because I was curious about like sort of Joe's level of nerves with regards to just kind of going out in public, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Probably he'll be a bit self-conscious about it. I mean, it's not like his identity is a secret, or that he's never been seen or photos taken of him or anything like that. It's just rarely is. Pretty much any reaction he's likely to get from people will rub him the wrong way or make him unhappy in some fashion.
Sure.
Oh, look at the cute monkey. Or, oh, can I take a picture with it, Mom?
Which is it's cool and at the same time really annoying because it's a kid who's honestly like just thinks is really freaking super cool to see a gigantic talking gorilla, and at the same time their reaction is annoying, right? So you understand that it comes from, at least in their case, a relatively honest place, but it still feels kind of gross. Or angry making, or whatever.
Right. Just didn't come across.
I know which one you're linking over there though, so it all works out. It all works. So running around the ring again, then it's field trip day, and I should flip over here a little bit and look at the homeroom people too. But what does it look like Alex getting ready to go on this field trip, kind of with everything? Like, is there? So what's it look? I won't even suggest anything. Well, what's it look like with Alex, with them getting ready for the trip? Like, what's prep look like?
There is a backpack which is full of stuff which is likely to be noticed, and they're going to be asked to leave the backpack somewhere secure. And then there's all the actual equipment that they're going to bring with them, which is stuffed into pockets, slung down the back of their shirt, and other places that you wouldn't ordinarily check for.
Right.
So computer on a chip, that kind of thing.
Sure. Do your limbs have any hidey hole spaces, kind of like void spaces within them that certain things can be secured or attached or anything like that?
I'm gonna say yes. I mean, it was one of the two powers that was taken, so I'm kind of leaning into that.
Yeah.
I think that they have probably got some capacity for storing small items. Like you're not going to smuggle like a huge sniper rifle or something in, but you could carry something small. So yeah, he's the thing that
pocket torch, sonic screwdriver, psychic paper.
Yeah, the thing that Waters was talking about, like the gadget, like something relatively small like that, Alex could probably hold on to, but they're going to make do anyway.
Right. No, it's absolutely fine. So yeah, it's one of those like travel backpacks where the whole thing can be zipped a certain way so it all lays flat and you don't have to take your laptop out when you're going through security, and the whole thing just looks like an everyday carry for the nerdiest nerd that ever nerded.
Pretty much.
And then very likely getting that confiscated, which is fine. kiln. What does prepping for this, like getting ready for this field trip to a historical gathering of artifacts, what does that look like? Or
You cut off for me.
okay, sorry. What does it look like for Kiln to be getting ready for this? Or if you're at breakfast at the cafeteria or something like that, like who are you querying about like this? Or are you querying anybody about this? Do you admit your ignorance? I think that's even, isn't that a vulnerability move for you?
I don't think so.
Maybe? I'll look at your thing. I feel like talking about like something that just doesn't. Again, I need to make a to-do list thing where we like figure out all the different playbooks and make our own relic that is the Gestalt relic. I have for the relic, when you share a vulnerability or weakness with someone, share a frustration with the modern world, and then you can
For
ask
a
them.
team move, yeah.
That's what did I say?
You were just saying like vulnerability
Oh,
or
right.
something. I
Oh,
thought you were
yeah.
talking more about a condition.
Yeah, no, the vulnerability, like, as opposed to the triumphant celebration, one of the two team move things. Yeah. I don't know if that, theoretically,
Aren't
it
those
could
only
qualify.
at the like end of
Oh, no, you can do that pretty much in an order. It's just
something?
if it applies. The vulnerability thing is, it just says when you share a vulnerability or weakness with someone, share a frustration with the modern world. Um, the triumphant celebration is pretty clearly, um, after celebrating some triumphant celebration, but that's a separate trigger. Um,
Yeah.
no, you can
Yeah.
you can trigger the vulnerability. I've found you can trigger the vulnerability thing a lot more frequently, um, and it doesn't necessarily have to be at the end of like some big thing. Um, uh,
So I will talk with someone, but I don't really see it as sharing a vulnerability.
okay. Who do you
Um,
think? It could be a team member, could be anybody in the class. Really, up to you.
I was thinking, I'd be talking with Chris because we were
Oh,
probably supposed to meet up to go uh
another cooking
grab
class.
some groceries so we could do our our own cooking class.
Gotcha.
And I had to back out. So she, of course, was making me say why. So I'm like, yeah, we're going to a thing called the museum, and like
Oh, the
Rhodey
optional.
and Rhodey and Joe really didn't look enthusiastic about it. What's up with that?
Oh, that was the optional field trip. I didn't end up signing up. I suppose I could go. If you're gonna, are you gonna go? Are you guys gonna go?
Well,
And,
yeah.
and it's weird because although you guys haven't, I mean, you are seen as a group by the your group is seen as a group by people. So when she says you guys, she's definitely talking about you guys. But yeah, I mean, if you're gonna go, I mean, I don't have anything else to do. Maybe I can go with. Okay, if I go with. So I mean, it seems like everybody in town's been to this museum like 50 times. I've never been, so I guess that's pretty cool. I mean, have you been there already?
I maybe I don't know what it is.
You don't know what a museum is?
That
That's
that's why I said.
Oh, sorry, I was busy processing the not cooking part. Uh, which to be clear, I heard what you said. She's past her head. Okay, so what is a museum? So anything that people can dig up kind of or learn about different stuff that happened in the past, they gather into these museums, and then people who didn't do that work of researching it can come and learn about it as though they're explaining it to a third grader. Sometimes it's history. This one's history. So this one's about history, science stuff, I guess, and it says space on the museum. So maybe there's like stuff about space. There's probably, I mean, it's Halcyon, so there's probably a bunch of superhero stuff in there. I'm sure there's like a whole superhero wing. That's about just the history of superheroes in Halcyon City or the whole world or whatever. That's how it is with some museums. Some museums are more like collections of art. So like all the art that people will make will be all collected in one place. Like where I'm from, I got to double check here, just make sure that she is from kind of like a
Farming
Farm.
family
Yeah.
background.
So like there's a museum that's kind of near where my family's from originally, and it's all I'm not going to finish this sentence if you don't promise not to laugh at me. You promise not to laugh?
My lips are sealed.
Okay. So all of the art is made out of corn. It's all corn art. It's like people and I guess you can't really call them paintings, but they're like art in a frame. And there's sculptures, it's corn sculptures and statues, I guess. I mean, they're they shaped like people and they're statues. And there's mobiles and weird machinery and like the study of chemicals and it's a whole corn thing. It's very corny. Oh, I can't believe I just said that. Oh my god.
That sounds very impractical.
Well,
The corn thing, but the museum idea, that seems like could be interesting. I don't understand why people wouldn't want to go
well,
learn about, go
it's
to see it.
no, it's cool. It's just if you've been a lot, it's kind of like you've been to the same cool place many, many times, so it's not maybe as interesting. I've never been to this one, and that's pretty cool. I'm kind of curious about some of the super stuff, so maybe we can check that out. The corn thing is just you have to understand where I came from. Like what you have a lot of is corn and bored people, which means you get bored people making things out of corn. So that's what that is. Um, I yeah, that's the closest thing that we had to culture, which is kind of why I want to go to this thing. Okay, so that's you and Chris kind of talking about that. And she seems a lot less bummed about the not cooking part, knowing that there's actually like plans that can still be them, her getting to do something. So that's cool. Matt, how does one prep to go to a museum if you're Met? Or are you being coached by the oh god, what's her first name again?
Julian?
Jillian? I need a name for her crew. The macaronis. Anyway, macaronis. This doesn't seem like the kind of thing where she would put a lot of effort. It's like, I'm not going to help you get ready to look cool at a museum because it's a museum and that's ridiculous. There's no way to look cool at a museum. But if you're Met, how do you prepare for this? I hear you through Dave's speaker. It's okay.
Mute.
Le mute.
So I would treat it as the field trips I grew up with. So that means being prepared to take notes and I'll probably have some kind of I'll probably be using my camera phone, because that's probably not too far away from, what I would have had her do.
Right.
So I'll probably, have a small backpack with, a notebook and some other stuff in
I
it.
mean, the idea of a building full of a bunch of like history and stuff, this whole building that's essentially going to make it easier for you to kind of calibrate when you are, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's exciting. Um, seems like it could be in any case.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, I was already sort of looking forward to seeing what the history, was, and if I can, better match that up to, points, particularly if they have a supers, section.
Yeah, which I mean, it's Halcyon City. Of course, they're going to have. I mean, that's going to be one of the big draws. Um, I would think. It seems like the kind of thing that you would do. Okay. Cool, cool. Joe, any particular prep as you're getting ready for this thing? Because you're getting like intercom thing, at the school is like anybody who's going on the field trip, you have 20 minutes to be at the ferry for conveyance over to the main off the island on the ferry. Again, 20 minutes.
Yeah, boy, can I be late? No, probably should not be. Um, you know, um, I make sure I'm well groomed.
Does he
Uh,
does he dress any differently? Does he put on a hat? Like, I mean, I keep,
no. He, he's
That would
he's
be
not the
very
monkey with a
cliche,
hat.
and the last time he wore a hat, it led to some very, very unfortunate events.
it was a color thing. For some reason, a bunch of people who were like, there was a bunch of monkey in a gold hat jokes that you didn't understand or even get the reference to.
It was more the organ grinder ones that
Oh,
finally did.
yeah, you want to stay away from fezzes. That's a bad look. Um,
Those are not cool.
we were watching one of the last of the Matt Smith episodes, and he's like going through a museum and like, ooh, and he picks up a fez, and his companion turns around, and is like, someday you could just walk by a fez and just walk by.
I know that episode, and it's my favorite episode.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites too. Someday you might walk by a fez. Just walk by it. Pretty good. Anyway, yeah, don't put the grill in a fez. I was just thinking of like Beast from X-Men, like trying to be incognito by virtue of just like putting a hat on and a coat. Yeah, that's not a subtle look. The I mean, I have to ask, did you specifically go looking for like gorilla in a sombrero?
Yes.
That's that is a look. I don't know if I even really understand context on that one.
So the rule is, if you go Google image searching for anything on the internet, the bad news is you'll find it.
That's fair. I gotta hand it to the gigantic organ grinder thing though. That's really something.
That that is actually the original Mighty Joe Young.
Oh really? In a little pillbox hat. It's really
Little organ grinder monkey hat. Yeah.
okay. Poor Joe. Poor Joe. So a few flashbacks there. Gotcha.
So in terms of prep, he's just gonna make sure he's not put on anything different. He's just gonna make sure he looks okay. That he doesn't look, he doesn't have hair sticking out in funny directions and stuff like that.
Okay, so quick check in here, looking around the classroom and deciding who would actually come along. Sequoia would absolutely come along. And for those of you who've watched any of My Hero Academia, the senior class, the blonde kid from the senior class, like his attitude for me is just like where I gravitate towards with Sequoia. Not that would necessarily mean anybody. Problem child, no. Sync's not coming. 7-year would not go. He doesn't want to go into public at all.
Mm-mm.
Aliad, yes. Vic, which one's Vic? Oh, Vic's the wizard, the sort of like the magic kid, right? Oh no, Vic's the nerd. Um, oh God, what is the class?
Fix the nerd who's got dark secrets.
The nerd with dark secrets, but he's like the I want to say symbiote, but it's not the right playbook. The
Joined.
the joined to Hunter. And they're not gonna. I take that back. They probably both go. They got sent by their mentor. Kid Cool, no. My thought is that nobody could get Emma to go except Nono wants to go, so Emma's going. But I need experts to track me on that.
No, that's legit.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like never in a million years. And then catches a glimpse of Nono like looking incredibly crestfallen, and the next shot that you have is the both of them sitting on the ferry with Nono looking thrilled and Emma looking like beyond annoyed, unless Nono's looking his way, in which case she's like, hi. Gothwitch, no. Pollyanna, no. Evan Daystarson, absolutely. He is fascinated by human culture and wants to learn more. Hellblade's coming. Jillian, like half my family's in the museum. I don't want to go to that. That's like a family reunion, except they're even more stuck up and boring. No. And Two Kick. I don't think so. Dave, thoughts? You came up with them, so
Haley, yeah. No.
I feel like that's a little bit too
Probably not.
staid and boring for them.
Well, and actually, she was going to, and then saw that Joe was going on the trip and changed her mind.
Really? I somehow.
Yeah, she was one of the people. She was one of the people who.
Oh, right. So it was Haley, and who was the other one that was really
Roy.
Roy? Oh
Was it
yeah,
Roy?
but Roy's going anyway. Well, no, Roy was one of the two that was out in the field, like out in the actual mission at the time. I feel like it was
Yeah.
Haley and somebody else, but I can't remember who. 7-year? No. You'll have to go back to your notes. I don't remember.
Yeah,
the other ones.
I'm
I remember
looking.
Haley. Might have been Roy anyway. Yeah. Roy's one of those ones who tries super hard because of, I guess, his back. I
Roy,
mean,
yeah, Roy and Haley.
yeah, basically because of his background, Roy tries super hard. So, good or bad, that's just the nature of things with him because of, so he's always upbeat, always positive, and he's definitely got side eye for anybody who's doesn't seem to be holding to that same line, so to speak. Okay, so fairly good sized group. I'd call about half the class. Roy and Ellie, yeah. All right. So. Chris plops down next to you, Kiln.
What the other people who opted out don't know is that there's other work for them to do while they're optionally not on the field trip.
Probably. In a lot of cases, it's just like could not be bothered. Like Kid Cool is way too cool for the museum. Yeah, Kid Cool wouldn't be caught dead going to something like this. Vic and Hunter have been ordered to go. Problem Child is probably going to get. I mean, he's not. You haven't seen him in school. No, and Emma, yeah. Pollyanna and Goth Witch. Yeah, Pollyanna has zero interest in the museum as such. And Goth Witch has probably got. She wouldn't admit this to anybody, but she took like an advanced, like an AP history class her freshman year, and like basically doesn't have to do any of the field trips that have to do with this kind of thing because she's already like this is basic stuff for her. It's a backward step. 7-year has a sort of a personal trauma pass to not have to go. Who knows why Jillian didn't manage to get out of it, or Haley for that matter. That's mostly class. Surge would not be the one that was running, that was like bringing you guys. I think. Oh, it has to be Kiln's favorite guy, right? Kiln's favorite teacher.
But Serge was the one who suggested this.
Surge was the one that suggested it, but he can't be put in charge of a field thing off the island because he's on like basically he's got a low jack. He can't go out in the city. He's the one who suggested that you guys be sent on a field trip, but he can't be the person for it because he's literally a criminal on parole. He has a limited band of operations, and it definitely does not include the main city. I mean, there's a non-zero chance that he would run into somebody out there that he's like hurt in the past. So he would be.
What I was going to say is that it'd also be too obvious as to the link between the two things.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, he wouldn't. Not that he would really care about that much, because it doesn't really bother him. It's like, yes, I wanted
but
to.
Hellbinder might.
Yeah, Hellbinder might. And Hellbinder's not going to go out in the city. That for kind of similar reasons to Surge. In a lot of ways, they have things in common. I'm gonna roll back down here to the.
I can put a link to the.
I've got that.
teachers.
Well, I was pulling up the teachers there. Gabriel Frith. Oh yeah, we got
it in Discord now.
Yeah, we got to use Mr. Frith. Mr. Frith, Dr. Frith. Professor.
Yeah, I was about to say doctor.
Frith. Professor Frith. Lovely. He's subtle. That's a subtle outfit he's got on. But it's a history museum. They gotta send a history guy.
He's not history. He's mythology.
But it's real mythology, or something, right? Practical mythology. What's this? Applied mythology. I don't know, whatever. It doesn't matter if it makes any sense. It would annoy Kiln, so I'm picking them. That is a perfect picture of Emma on the ferry. I concur. I support this. That's good stuff. Unless it's Nono's looking her way, in which case, big supportive smile and a thumbs up. Yeah, that's good stuff. Okay, so you can't see the whole museum on any given one day, probably two, just because of all the stuff. Like Alex has been sort of told in the briefing to nudge people towards ancient cultures. but that probably isn't going to be an issue, given the fact that that's what Professor Frith wants to have everybody check out anyway.
Goes on anyways.
Yeah. So that one's going to be the non-optional thing. So in the interest of it letting you explore what interests you and explore the myth of democracy, we're going to have a vote for the second wing that we will visit during today's field trip. The first one will, of course, be ancient cultures. The second one can be from, and he'll rattle off everything from space travel to the superhero, history of heroes in Halcyon and in the world. There's a archaeological section. There's an art wing, not a particularly well-known art wing, but it does have some interesting pieces and lots of replicas of other interesting pieces, that kind of thing. So you don't get the real winged victory, but you get a pretty good facsimile thereof.
The Quill Foundation's not big into art.
Yeah. So he's just doing sort of show of hands on the ferry while everybody's getting over there. What are, and I will sort of let your group, be the bellwether for this, but where's the preference there for that second place to check out in the museum?
I would say for me, it's either space travel or histories of supers.
Yeah, probably supers, because you're still trying to figure out like who's who and who coincides with the stories that you've been told that you need to avoid and stuff like that. So you need like putting the face to the name seems to be. Yeah. So maybe that.
The space travel is more because there's names that are obviously related to the advent of generation ships and space travel.
For sure. Yeah, no, yeah, that makes a ton of sense also. So you're kind of raising your hand twice, which he's just.
That's okay because Hot Mess didn't raise her hand at all. So.
Yeah. She wouldn't raise her hand for super. I don't know if she'd raise her hand for anything. I'm going to throw this. Actually, I'm going to throw this at Bill real quick. What topic that a museum would cover does Emma inexplicably raise her hand for as a thing that you would want to? It would just seems. I don't see her wanting to go and like look at big shiny superheroes, but like, what would she like go? Yeah, that'd actually be pretty cool.
So her original backstory was that she was valedictorian. She was like on a really good trajectory at her school until the accident that awoke her superpowers, and she had serious anger issues after that.
I get that.
So she's going to go anywhere that is like, here's what successful business and industry and culture looks like. She remembers what she feels cut out of, so she's going to go for something like that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, maybe that might be more of an American history kind of a thing, or American ingenuity or something. Not that's obviously wouldn't be what they call it, but something like that. Rise of Halcyon City. That might be kind of a cool thing. The non-super side of things, something like that. I'm not sure, but I like that. I had forgotten that with her background, her whole academic thing. Kiln, knowing that the professor is directing you towards ancient studies, which you feel almost like, I just came here to have a good time and be confused about modern culture, and I'm feeling so attacked right now. What would Kiln lean toward in that second category?
I think the art wing, given Chris mentioning that her town had something, called corn art. So wanting to see if they also have corn art here, or even what corn art is.
I see. And it's funny because Chris enthusiastically puts her hand up for the super section, but then seeing that your hand went up for the art, like also kind of like hesitantly puts her hand up for that, like going to be supportive. It's hard to tell with Chris because when her hand's up, it's just like up to everybody else's shoulder level. But um, uh, there's that. Joe.
Joe's gonna go for the supers wing, because maybe there's something there that he could maybe get excited about. Maybe it's been a few years since he hasn't been in the museum obviously since the incident.
Yeah, the incident. Right.
And so it was kind of a cool place to go before then. I'm sorry.
I didn't say anything.
Yeah, oh no, Margie was saying something while on mute. And it's either gonna be really cool or really depressing.
You say like it's not since the incident. How long has Joe been? Has it been a couple years?
No more than that.
Yeah, I didn't think it's been very long, but it's been.
It's probably, I'm thinking, kind of on the order of about a year.
Okay. Cool. So whatever been going on since then. Very cool. I keep feeling I need to ask somebody else because Mike's not here and it's throwing me off. Boy. So the professor kind of looks at all this and like he's all the hands going up and everything like that, and he made a show of counting things, tallying things for like one, and then he immediately just assigned it to Vic and said, "Oh God, what is Vic's last name? I don't think we actually have that down. Doesn't really matter." But he calls him by his last name. It's like you count the hands. And then he comes back and it's a bunch of ties. My 6-year-old was doing tallying, like graphing results from like tallying up votes in class and stuff like that. Like that was her math today.
Mm-hmm.
And she got super frustrated by one of the questions was like how many kids there were in the class, or it said like that there were this many kids in the class, but that the total number of votes didn't add up to that. It had too many because you could vote for multiple things, and she was very very angry about it. She's just very frustrated. That can't be right. Somebody's cheating anyway. But that's as soon as the professor sees the tally. Which he was kind of expecting, and seeing that the total number of tallies is like clearly indicating that people are voting multiple times, resulting in a series of one vote misses and hits and things of that nature. No real unifying thing there. He just kind of rolls, he kind of half rolls his eyes. It's like, very well, since the voting is hung, we will go with Dictator Fiat. Second place will be the superhero wing, so you can all see what that's supposed to look like. But first, ancient cultures and something of some educational value. I don't think I don't think Frith is actually like a super, is he? Is he a mundane person?
Is a part of the Society of the Sacred Sand.
So if
it wasn't decided he could very easily be like some magic based,
yeah, type of thing, like well, any of the magic based superheroes.
Or he could just be studying old magic based stuff and coming up to really bad conclusions.
Let him be a cipher that we will answer on another day. I am going to pause for a second and run downstairs real quick and grab some Advil, and I will be right back, and we will get into the museum and stuff. So, right back. All right.
So how are you doing, Bill? Oh, right as Joyce comes back.
No, that's fine. You can. I haven't unpaused or anything, so buttons here to unpause. Hey, the recording's going. Look at that. It's cool that they added the pause button in this. They would be nicer if it actually looked like it was doing anything, like it doesn't react. Anyway. Okay, so the museum. We need a picture. Have a picture. Pull up the picture. Zippers. I think. Oh, this will work for now. So the tour, the field trip sort of tour, the class is met by a sort of tour guide for the thing. Museum being what it is, it's got some pretty high tech options where you can kind of man, it finally got into focus there. That's interesting. Some high tech options where you can put on the headphones and all this other kind of stuff. But it's in the
Lovely professors having none of that.
In the professor's opinion, it's awfully easy at that point to like not actually be playing the thing and just sort of wander around looking like you're paying attention when you're not actually paying attention. So he's, as you say, Margie, he's having none of that. I don't know why there. Man, picture's being very persnickety about moving around. Wow, it's being very difficult. Anyway, so live tour guide person for this. One of the other benefits of the live tour guide person giving information about where everything is, the history of whatever, the provenance of wherever everything that they're talking about, is it gives the professor an opportunity to interrupt constantly and insert his own sort of running commentary on all of it, which is a benefit from the point of view of the professor and literally no one else. So.
And of course, the guy knows this, and he's the one who drew the short straw this week.
Probably. I mean, this guy's
guides.
Yeah. The professor's got to be a known quantity for all of this as well. So that's an extra bit of super fun. So that's definitely a thing that's going on. James, actually, this would be more appropriately addressed at Kiln, but Kiln, what's your culture's, you called it Magitech, I think, in one of it was incorrect quotes, but it was still quotes nonetheless. Wasn't it sort of a Magitech kind of phrase or something like that for it?
That phrase was used.
I'm not sure if it was. I'm just.
No, it was Bill, but it works.
I made the mistake of just opening up the incorrect quotes thing, and it's like the first thing I saw was Evan talking about ending a 5-year relationship. Don't worry, it wasn't mine.
You dropped out again.
I just for a moment, I opened up incorrect quotes, and the first thing that popped up was Evan saying, I just ended a 5-year relationship. Don't worry, it wasn't mine. Which I hadn't seen before. So anyway.
So Kiln can come up with whatever term that they want, but Magitech has been the term that's been used in like Final Fantasy and other games for a long time. So it's a generic term.
I like it. And so generically, we can always say, yeah, magic. What's this? How close do we how close do we hew to the source material on this? I say obliquely. Um, is it that kind of like carved stone with like runes in it kind of a thing that needs to be activated a certain way, or largely indistinguishable from other carved rock stuff until something is sort of activates it? Is that maybe a fair way of looking at it? I don't know, so I'm just asking.
Yeah, that works.
Visually, I'm just trying to think of like what we're likely to see here.
There's not going to be a glowing stick. Put something here sign on it.
Right.
No big arrow.
Nah.
My thought, and I'm waiting for this other image to load, just to kind of think kind of out loud about this a little bit. Is that if you get into an area like that's, we can talk about this as soon as this thing kind of loads, but the idea that there's like maybe just, this is an excerpt of this particular tomb that we, like all the stones of this particular tomb were moved piece by piece from their original resting place and brought here and reconstructed within the actual, museum, so you could actually walk around inside of the temple of, well, we don't know exactly who the temple's to, but we could walk around like inside the temple.
Early archaeology.
Yeah. And the idea there being that, oh, good Lord, that does just want to move around a bunch. The idea being that like somewhere within, say, this reconstructed edifice, there may be activatable artifacts that are just there looking like part of the wall. I don't know why this thing is so grainy. I think it's just not resolved yet, but in any case, but just the idea that there could be pieces and parts of this stuff that might theoretically activate. When you guys first came together, there was like sort of a smuggling type of situation on the docks. Troll was involved. There were like these crates, and they had some of your technology. What did we say happened to that stuff? Was it all whisked away by Aegis? Was that what we settled on there with that stuff, or what do we think
gotten
happened?
destroyed in some way.
So, oh, that's right. Some of it, had been like damaged, so it couldn't actually be used. Interesting. Okay. All right. So the professor is leading you guys along. When you guys are getting off the sort of school bus that came, they'll get on the bus. Bus rolls on the ferry. Ferry rolls to the other end. Bus rolls, and you're getting off. Alex, you called it pretty quickly. I mean, the professor immediately kind of motions for you to hand him the backpack. He like unzips it about a quarter of the way and just kind of opens up like, no, and just sets it over on the chair. It'll be here with Mr. Simmons. He kind of has to lean over and look at the bus driver's name tag. It'll be here with Mr. Simmons when we get back. Not going to be necessary to take Geiger counter readings off of whatever's in the museum. We'll be fine.
Alex will look suitably disappointed and smirk internally.
Of course. So that idea here is that you're kind of keeping an eye on your mates, as well as the other folks in here. What does that look like? Just in terms of like what's your tech? Are you just eyeballing it, or does the tech in your eyeball work well enough for this kind of thing, or what? And kind of looking for sort of an assess the situation kind of thing. But I'm more curious about like what you're pulling out to accomplish this as you guys are like kind of going through this, and literally that sort of temple thing where they've done that. There's a whole section for the ancient cultures area where they've taken what was probably originally like a side cafe area and rebuilt inside of it like a brick by brick. They've literally moved all the cut stones from like some temple somewhere and rebuilt the thing inside of the museum in this big open space. So it's pretending it's the outdoors or whatever, and then just let people walk around in it. What's that look like for you to kind of do what Aegis is doing, or are you not? Are you just like going, I'm sorry, I didn't notice anything?
No, Alex is definitely doing it. You are still kind of breaking up though, but I think I got the idea.
Okay, sorry.
So Alex has a problem, which is that there's three people they have to keep an eye on, which is the teacher, Joe, and Kiln. So Alex is probably going to be texting Joe and or calling him and just sort of playing the ongoing moral support of, hey, you're probably feeling alone in this museum, so I'm gonna be keeping you company virtually. Alex is gonna be kind of trailing after Kiln, and also far enough back where they can also see the teacher keeping an eye on Kiln and or Joe.
Yeah.
So and all this whole time just sort of looking disinterested. But in terms of equipment, it's probably all internal, so you probably won't notice anything unusual if you looked at them. They're more or less expecting that the teacher's going to notice something, and they're going to wait to see what happens there.
Okay. So do you think this warrants a roll? Or are you looking at it from the? Let me ask that a different way. Are you more curious about like what the teacher's motivation here seems to be, or taking? Are you noting the actual like physical the any possible reactions type of stuff? So is it more like looking for those social emotional reactions type of stuff, reading people, or are you getting the technical spectrometer readings type of thing?
I think it's more social and emotional part. Aegis and the school may have an interest in what these two teammates are going to cause a reaction from. Alex actually does care, and it is more concerned with like the effects that not only whatever happens is going to have on them, but also wants to kind of understand what they're thinking or how they respond.
Interesting. Cool.
Like Alex firmly believes that if either of these two trigger some reaction, they're probably going to notice it before a lot of other people will. Like I think that both Kiln and Joe are probably fairly keyed up on their surroundings because they just naturally would be.
Sure. Joe, where did the incident happen? Like, where were you guys at? Was it like it was the Congo kind of it was sort of the Central African?
It was on the eastern edge of the Democratic Republic of the Congo.
Okay, all right. And then Kiln, if you were gonna put wherever the once great, former kingdom of your home was at, where was that? I mean, maybe the continents have shifted and that kind of thing.
Pacific Ocean.
So like a Lemuria kind of thing. Okay. So culturally,
I didn't hear what you said. What did you say?
Kiln was saying sort of the Pacific Rim, sort of that Lost Island of Lemuria kind of deal, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So from a cultural point of view, it seems likely that the ruins or artifacts or whatever that are brought up that are likely to, well, you would think that the artifacts that are likely to sort of trigger a reaction in Joe and that would get some reaction when Kiln would be different, except we sort of established that they're maybe not so much different, just geographically different. Okay, so that's more for me, like setting up potentially what's going on there. So I'll go back to Alex here then for this question. At the moment where something's potentially happening that's triggering someone or causing a reaction in someone, whether it be the professor or Kiln or Joe, who are you? There's no way to say this in an awkward, like in character that isn't an awkward way, so I'm going to say it at a more meta level. Who are you going to point like a proper sort of pierce the mask on that will also sort of dictate like who the reaction is happening to right then, if that makes sense?
I'm going to go for Kiln.
Okay. All right. In that case, I'm going to ask you to pierce the mask on Kiln, remembering that if you have influence, that there's a bonus there. And that's based on your mundane? I think it's mundane.
Yep, which is terrible.
Which is terrible. That's okay. So we got that.
That's the second one where mundane was the worst score and the one that was called for.
Yeah.
That was Joe's.
Happens sometimes, but still a 9.
I don't know anybody who has a good mundane right now.
5-5, yeah, double fives. Doesn't matter really how bad the roll is because that's going to be a pretty decent roll anyway. Okay, so with Pierce the Mask, see a person may roll on a 10, ask 3, on a 7-9, ask 1. I will ask, so gives you kind of a question there. And this is really, you can ask this question really directly sort of to Kiln. So Kiln, this reconstructed temple, we'll say, is from somewhere in the Pacific Rim, obviously an ancient culture. They're pretty close as far as their attribution, like who probably, like, or at least they don't have names necessarily for the cultures, but the facts about what the building was probably used for, things like that, generally match up. Point is though that it's very jarring or really weirdly surreal to see this building that is supposed to be outside, supposed to be out under the sky and the sun, the stars and so forth, inside of another larger building. Especially if it was one like as a temple where it seemed like sort of a grand or a notable edifice, and it looks small. In context to being inside of this modern building with all this empty space around it, not only putting it inside of another building, but also like putting it inside of another building with lots of room to spare, sort of a deal. So letting Alex decide sort of where that question goes there, but having some kind of reaction to that. I will say, and who linked the Temple of Dendur? Yeah, it's exactly kind of what I'm thinking of there with that Temple of Dendur that's in the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. Because if you ever go into that space, it's like it's this, the picture that Dave put up in Discord is awesome. And certainly accurate, and it's a neat edifice, and the fact that it's inside the building is really cool. But it looks grander than it is when you see it in the context of there's a lot of empty space coming up to this thing that's not being used for anything. It's just wide open, blank stone flooring for quite a while to get up to this door, and it makes it seem small and for a thing that was never really intended to be small or not be imposing and impressive. It's a really, I think, hopefully, unintentional diminishing effect. To a certain extent. I mean, not least because when you get up there and you realize that, before they managed to get it out of wherever it was at and brought over and rebuilt in the museum, it had been open to people just sort of wandering in and out of the thing for dozens, if not hundreds of years. And there's graffiti just carved into the rocks. Like, Sam and Sarah 1913, stuff like
Right.
that. Which, talk about a diminishing effect. But this is a great shot angle for it, but when you see it in a larger space, it does have that kind of weird effect, and that's kind of what I'm thinking of potentially for Kel. I don't know. On a 10, there's like 3 questions to ask. On a 7 and 9, there's 1. I think that the reason for that, and this is just really of a color thing more than anything else. One of the reasons that you're not getting a ton of information off of this is a certain amount of distraction, Alex. Who, maybe they're not here. Who in the class was like the person that Alex had like because I remember you were sort of rolling up sort of NPC type of reactions to everybody as they were being introduced when we were doing the homeroom. Who was the person you had like a weirdly strong reaction to, like a strongly positive reaction to?
That was Vic.
Okay. So I'm going to say that like while this is going on and you guys are getting the tour and stuff like that, you sort of find yourself standing next to Vic and, this ancient cultures thing. And he's like taking notes and he kind of notices you noticing, he sort of notices you noticing him taking notes and he's terrible at it in kind of an endearing way, sort of making small talk, making jokes, self-deprecating kind of things. And he sort of is trying to keep that pattern going because it isn't completely going down in flames. The end result being that while you're paying attention, you're not at 110% focus because Vic's kind of in your periphery and being distracting, but not knowing that he's being distracting, which makes it not the kind of thing that would generate maybe anger. I don't know. But that's just more color to, get us to that 9. He is the -1 that pulled you back down. I don't know.
Oh, that was good. I like that.
Yeah, I just he's kind of there, and are you trying to? So is Alex trying to maintain their side of the conversation? So
I caught half of that. So
sorry.
again.
Is Alex trying to maintain their half of the conversation, like in an effort to not make him feel like he's being shot down?
Sure.
I'm sorry that I'm breaking up so much. That is too bad. I wish there was something to do about that. My internet's been crazy for a while. All right, so pierce the mask. Getting to the actual meat and bones of the thing, you can ask a number of different questions here. And honestly, if you go a little bit off the tracks on this one and just try to ask, I think you could probably just shoot a question at Kiln. Well, maybe what you intend to do can be pretty broadly interpreted as well. So
I'll be more specific. How can I get your character to try to deliberately set off a reaction with the ruins?
Ooh. So, Kiln, I'm going to throw in. Let me ask a question that's completely outside of the game. Am I breaking up for everybody? Is this worse for Bill than everybody else? Am I in and out?
You're breaking up for me.
Oh, super.
Yeah.
That's.
You're, and it's almost like, are you walking around?
I mean, I'm walking around, but I'm walking around within like a foot and a half of the computer. I'm just pacing around my office.
Because it's sort of like you'll be talking and then it'll just drop out and then you'll come back. So
hang on.
It's not getting that kind of pixelation that you normally get if it's with the bad connection.
Hang on.
It's getting pixelation for me.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Let me just double check one potentially. Haha. You gotta be fucking kidding me. Pardon me. Hmm. Um. Hmm. Okay. Can you guys hear me still?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Is it any better?
So far.
All
For the
right.
moment.
The default mic switched from my headset to the camera that I plugged in to test out the camera thing on my, like when I plugged in the webcam, it switched to the
So,
med.
so
So
literally, as you were wandering around the room, you were
I
getting
was actually walking away from the microphone that was
close
live.
to the mic.
I'm so angry right now.
I will point out, at least for me, that during the explanation you were breaking in and out some.
Yeah, I don't know
Yes.
that it's necessarily fixed everything. Certainly doesn't seem to have. For whatever reason, and I think it might be because of the way I've caused the cabling. I'm on my big powerful PC, but my big powerful PC is on potentially a shady cable. It's a cable connection to my router, but it's a shady, highly suspect cable connection to my router that I need to do something about because it is the least reliable connection to the internet that I have in the house. All of the Wi-Fi works better than what should be the most solid connection, which is a cable straight to the router and from thence out. And for whatever reason, it's been really acting up. Okay, so James or Kiln, however we want to do that, say that in this case. So we've got this reconstructed building in a large space. Certainly, there's potentially Magitech that could, like, the blocks would have all been moved, and they're reconstructing this stuff as though it were just a building, and the blocks are just blocks. Um, but there certainly could have been, and where I was going before is that any one of those things might be something that might be activatable. Okay. It's in this space that makes it smaller than it is, that makes your whole culture seem as though it's a lesser, smaller thing, possibly reading it that way. And maybe it's a comfort to be able to like walk up to this thing and see whether or not any of that, yeah, maybe it could be a comfort, it could be morbid curiosity uh, to see whether or not your technology still would respond to you, would still react, would still work, because it may not. In which case, not only is it small and diminished and so forth, but dead. And maybe it does, and haha, I've shown them that, they get a little reminder that this stuff, how well will your light switches work 10,000 years from now, kind of a thing. So, what nudge from Alex do you need to like go up there and see if you can still flip the light switch on?
Well, regardless, um, Kiln isn't going to do this where other people, let alone the professor, will see. They really want. They don't want to necessarily give away all the secrets of their people.
Gotcha. Is
So,
this
so the way to get Kiln to do it is to get everyone else out of the room.
Well, yeah, that and probably also just to get them to try it would be to get the professor to provoke them in some way by, I don't know, asking him a question to which he would most likely respond something derisive about the civilization to get a rise out of Kiln.
So
Of course, this looks like
So
a light
provoke-
speech, but we know
provoke-
that they were nearly advanced.
Yeah, provoke the professor to provoke Kiln.
So it sounds like the two potential answers there would be ask. It wouldn't even be interacting with Killen. It'd be asking the professor leading questions that would get him to say annoying things, or and James, negate this, veto this if I'm off base on this. Some kind of whispered thing of like, let's circle back here after the rest of the class is left for the day, and so you can spend some proper time here, kind of a deal. Like when everybody else is gone, we can circle back around here while they're busy gawking at supers, and you can actually get some time in here where what's his name isn't yammering. Would that work?
That would also probably work.
Okay. So
I'm going to ask a third question, not from this list, but just as a player. Do you want to impress Chris?
Ooh, it's a good question.
That possibility hadn't really entered mine or probably Kiln's mind.
It truly is an innocent cooking class. Chris will be terribly disappointed.
Probably not.
We're gonna have this checkbox like list of like everybody on the team and whether or not they've shot down Chris accidentally yet. I think we're up to 2. Anyway. So
Alex had their reasons. Okay, I'm just going to say that. But anyway.
Yeah. So I would say
I'll stir the pot.
Stir the pot.
Hey, Professor, what's so important about all these rocks?
Well, you see, there's a great deal of academic conjecture about the significance of the temple, as well as some of the carving, and what they've discovered is certain veins of precious metals. They believe that some carving was actually done into the rock, and then liquid metal poured in to the stone along these channels and allowed to harden. The more fanciful suppositions and theories liken it to the way that acid is used to etch CPUs in modern, really any modern electronics, but obviously that's ridiculous. So that's obviously not what was being done. The reason for it is base conjecture at this point. The idea that any sort of technologically viable achievement would have been or technologically significant effect would have been achieved by any of this is ridiculous. Of course, this is not circuitry. It's not prehistoric wiring. It had religious significance. It had a craftsman's demonstration of skill, that sort of thing. It's been obviously here reconstructed as accurately as possible, and it's significant for the metallurgy, if nothing else. It's a simple idea that they were able to smelt copper. Some of the alloys are really quite remarkable, although probably achieved accidentally due to just the necessary impurities introduced in such primitive metallurgy or forge skills. But really, very closely akin to some of the more advanced, as I understand it, more advanced metallurgical mixtures being used today. Very, very close to some of the alloys even used in our modern smartphone cases that are meant for conducting charging wirelessly, for example, things of that sort. The sorts of metals that facilitate that kind of thing. So one loves to suppose these sorts of things if one is of a fanciful mindset, and that, of course, engenders a great deal of debate amongst the more academically and historically minded. Um, so he's uh, sometimes I just have to sit back and say, where the fuck did that just come from? I have no. Thank you, Bill. I learned something about the
So
professor.
now that the rest of the class has moved on to the next room,
At these,
But I like the fact that it may actually trigger the realization that you could use your cell phone to charge it the way that you can, do the, phone to phone remote charging.
it's like key charging or anything like the key I think it'd be key charging. Um, just the idea of these various God, I don't know. I watched too many like mobile tech reviews of like the sturdiness. Never thought I'd hear the word. The sturdiness of an aluminum case as opposed to one that's more of a magnesium alloy. I'm like, sturdiness of an aluminum case. The world has changed.
I was thinking more of the more recent ones where, if you have an iPhone, you can actually charge a different iPhone off of
Yeah,
your battery.
or the Samsung thing. Yeah, Samsung does a thing like that as well.
If you think about it, if part of the structure of this is similar to alloys used in remote charging, it could be that your iPhone could charge the ancient technology
So my question,
and activate it.
yeah, no, I love that idea. I love the potential there that we could end up getting into with this. My question to Kiln is this, realizing I probably broke up throughout that entire thing, is the professor annoying enough right there for you to like kind of step up to the thing and do something while he's still talking? Or does Alex need to provoke him to be even more annoying? Like really achieve that black hole of annoyingness that would send you forward.
Kiln at this point will probably do it, but not. But they'll still wait for
The professor to leave, kind of a thing.
for people to leave.
Which several of them were moving along, like so. The professor's going on, and the guy who's actually supposed to be running the tour, his name is Brad. Brad has been sort of like smiling and nodding and sort of backing towards like because he's on a timetable and he's kind of backing towards the door and kind of he keeps kind of half turning thinking the professor is done and then having to turn back and continue to smile and kind of fold his arms behind his back and kind of rock on his heels a little bit. He's still going and everything and just keeps so as soon as there's a reasonably good pause. Thank you, Professor. That's an incredibly great insight into that. We're going to move on to the next section here, everyone. We're going to walk along here. There's a hopefully the display is or the presentation being done by the team in the next room will still be going on, so we can catch part of that. Which is his way of saying you're making us all late for the cool thing I was about to show you. And he kind of ushers everybody along, and the professor sort of doesn't really. There's a backwards glance towards Alex and really the rest of you guys, but he's willing to move along, knowing that like 70% of the group is in front of him. He's walking along, and that gives you your sort of your opening, your motivation there, Kiln, to step up and see what's what. And if you do want to see if you can activate something there, I'm going to have you do a unleash your powers. I think to overcome just any number of things, honestly. Ooh, look at that. Okay. All right. So unleash your powers. When you unleash your powers to overcome an obstacle, you reshape your environment, extend your senses, roll freak. On a hit, you do it. On a 7 to 9, market condition, or the effect is unstable or temporary. I mean, so what do you think? I certainly could see this being an unstable or temporary kind of thing, given the circumstances and the whole place being put back together by people who didn't understand the technology and all that other kind of stuff. But what do you think?
Yeah, I can see the uh unstable or temporary. I get kind of the lights turn on, lights flooding across the kind of metal engraving going up the ceilings, and for an off-filled moment, the inside of the temple is lit up, and then it flickers and turns off.
Yeah. Okay, so a couple things there. So yeah, the lights come on. Love that. The stones of the thing, actually, you hear a little bit of that kind of that classic Indiana Jones special effects sound of the rocks grinding against each other as the stones kind of make a game attempt to align to themselves more properly. Like they sort of, if you bring the two magnets together and they try to get into that like that perfect magnetic field alignment, they kind of like there's a little bit of that as the thing is live for a little bit. It doesn't last for long. Joe, does this resonance, the feel of this thing, this activated space, cause any kind of flashback reaction type of thing to that incident in Africa? There's a potential there for it, but I don't want to just like. I mean, nobody rolled a 6. I'm not just going to ham-fistedly say, yes, the take a powerful blow will instead be taken by Joe. But is there a reaction there, or is this just kind of this cool thing where the building activated and you get some goosebumps and the hair rises up along your back? Or did the power of the temple accidentally mute your microphone?
Yes, it actually muted my microphone. So a couple of things. One, that sound of the stone kind of
I like
grinding, aligning. Sounds familiar, but also just the way the light plays along these strips on the walls of the temple.
So not the direct viewing of the light, but the reflection of that quality of light on the larger space is what's giving you the Wiggins or the flashback or the deja vu type of thing.
Well, I was thinking because the Frith had mentioned kind of like these veins of metal, and so I was thinking of those actually, the ones on the surface actually being what lights up. So this this kind of this
Yeah, that I was also thinking.
This angular stripes of light along the pillars and the walls and everything, very unique, and also kind of adds that whole sense of this seem weirdly familiar.
Okay. So more of a sense of, it's not like a PTSD flashback as much as it is like this weird sense of deja vu. It doesn't have that level of extremity, I think, is where we're going with that. But definitely a sense of familiarity.
Unless there was something in game mechanics that would trigger that sort of a more violent reaction. This is more just kind of like.
Yeah, and that's not there. This would only be one of those situations where like, no, I want this to totally freak me out. I'm going to take a powerful blow right now, which you can do. But yeah, like I said, there's no sixes being rolled right here to get this. So it's more of like a really weird deja vu, sort of Wiggins, sort of Goosebumps, more like I almost remember this right on the tip of my brain kind of type of thing
Yeah.
that makes you think more than anything else. Okay. All right. Um, you hear Chris go, cool. Whoa. That, and it dies down and she's like, what was that? That was, I mean, amazing, but that was so incredibly cool. Can you do it again?
I don't think so. Moving the temple here by taking apart damaged the circuitry.
Yeah, but it did work. I mean, maybe, boy, I mean, that's really cool. You've kind of got like some of your own place is right here. That, that, wow. I wish I had my camera out, my phone out for that. That was so cool. Um,
I did.
That's the best. I love that. Okay, so they're moving on to the rest of the historical stuff. So here's the thing. I want to move on to the superhero thing, but I don't want to start the superhero thing right now because I think um, we're close enough to the end here. Dave and Margie were up late. I've actually had two really crappy nights of sleep. Um, the last 2 nights. One of which was entirely my fault. Had something to do with turnip prices in Animal Crossing. Which I'm not going to get into right now. So angry with myself. It's been a long time since a video game has kept me up into the wee hours. And if I was going to had bet folding money on it, it wouldn't have been that video game ever. Damn it. Anyway, but I want to have the second half of this be the superhero like wing, kind of, if that's all right. And we'll pull up here, let everybody get a earlier night's sleep, and then we can have. I think I've got a pretty good way of getting Mike's character in if he can do next week. I can't remember if he said he could do next week or not. And let's just do the superhero thing too. Meanwhile, developments for all this stuff. Is that cool? Or did anybody have anything else that they wanted to like sort of slide into this part of the thing with in the ancient cultures thing?
I'm good.
I will ask one last question, Margie. Well, okay. First of all, I will shut up for a second and actually wait for other people to answer. Anybody else have anything else they wanted to kind of slide into that ancient cultures section of the museum?
Yeah, at some point in this pair of episode, this is like a single episode between
Kind
the two.
of.
I'm guessing.
It kind of feels like it.
I would like to do my role at some point. So if it's more in keeping with the superhero, we can do it there too.
It's totally and what I was going to ask you was, and I don't, is it the applied history thing? No. Do we have it on the, I'm not sure if we have it on the actual character sheet, like what that move is.
Yeah, it's on there. So applied history is the move, but that's different. This is the, filling up my track, as it were.
Oh, the remember someone or investigate the timeline thing. Right.
Yep.
Yeah, I was mostly just going to ask if this moment made you remember something. I think it was remember something. I got to look at the character sheet now again.
Trigger a memory.
Yeah, if this triggered a memory or not. That was
it might be probably better in the hero room.
Okay, totally fine. What's interesting to me about that is that although Joe and Kiln's thing is largely about this sort of older tech, Kiln's got this stuff going on, and it's tied to Joe's instantiation, I guess. Sort of. Watch me shoehorn a word into a place that kind of fits. Anyway, your thing doesn't seem to be at least your current version of the future history that you're trying to prevent doesn't seem to be that closely tied to this tech. It may be at some level, but it isn't like, oh, Kiln touched this thing
It's
and now
not what I'm remembering right
yeah,
now.
exactly. Kiln touched this thing and turned on a thing, and now I remember him as the Great Destroyer, or whatever. And that's not where that's not where this head. It's more aimed at like Sergeant Surge, you know, being this thing, and
It's always been more about the people, anyways.
well, yeah, certainly,
Is the trigger.
yeah, it's been more about the people, but it also seems to be a little bit more about the supers, which is very cool. All right, so that's going on, and we'll pick up in the superhero wing for next week, where there'll be hijinks and some more of that stuff going on. Cool. Cool with everybody. All right. Cool.
Yep.
All right, thanks guys. Good stuff all the way around, and I think per previous practice, we'll wait until next time to do the sort of end of game stuff, because I think that works pretty well.
Yeah, they're half of the
It has kind of worked out that
pair.
way. I think it's been probably, I bet if I look back at the menagerie stuff, which I'm not going to do, if I look back there, it would feel like halves of a whole, probably more often than not too, without just realizing it. Anyway, all right. I will talk to you guys later. Thanks very much. Last night. Sleep well. Keep your hands clean. Stay away from, well, yeah. Don't let them open the state too soon. All that kind of good stuff. Everybody stay safe. So.